have to fix it after.
Episode 0.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. I somehow forgot to put which number it is in the title. It's 50 something. So thank you so much for being here. And Curtis, my God, I'm wearing the merch that I've gotten from you. Curtis has a really good merch store. He has been gracious enough to send me, and I believe also to you, Matt, some merch. Very high quality. I can highly recommend it. And oh my God, he's going crazy on the super chats. There's another guy, Fool's Gold, who is also going crazy on super chats. Thank you so much for your support. It's crazy what you guys are doing.
That's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still curious though. Curtis said he was shutting down the store, so I'm curious if he still wants us to plug it. Because if so, let me know, Curtis. Because I got plenty of things to plug after you convinced me to use the one thing that you had sent me, so I can plug it if you want people flooding the stores. Because I was like afraid to use this thing. I thought it was going to disintegrate in my hands, and then you were like, "No, just use it, man." And the thing's pretty sweet. So.
You mean the notebook?
The rag. No, well, the notebook I have, yeah, it's right next to me. And then he gave me some rags that like,
oh yeah,
I don't know, yeah. And I was like afraid because they show up hard, right? And I was like, so because this thing is gonna like disintegrate if I get it wet because it's got like the 50th launch kind of like logo on top of it. And then I used it, and that thing's more sturdy than I was expecting. So anyway,
yeah. It's pretty good. We've been using them since we got them, so pretty good. So it feels like his main business is not Rocket Lab merch, believe it or not. It's the Swede dishcloths, which I can highly recommend. But for fun, he does Rocket Lab merch. So it's been a crazy week for Rocket Lab stock. We have seen, I want to say new all-time highs, but it's new all-time highs for me at least. The stock has been higher right after the IPO. Trump has been elected. Lots to talk about. I don't even know. Let's go with the usual. So how was your week? How's your portfolio doing?
Portfolio is good. Yes, the placard also over my left shoulder was from Hot Curtis as well. The week was good, man. Almost hit a new milestone in the portfolio. Palantir is my first position that's ever crossed over $200,000 in gains. People are giving me crap because they were like, what about Rocket Lab? What about Rocket Lab? Rocket Lab is also very close behind that. So a second announcement would probably be made if we go too much above where we are today. In fact, I need to check. It's probably within a couple thousand grand, like a couple $1,000s. It's not like it's 20% away or anything like that. So overall, both stocks are up. Portfolio is doing extremely well. I wasn't expecting the SPY to hit 6,000, or the S&P rather to hit 6,000. So Amazon's up, SoFi is up, Google's up. So my whole portfolio pretty much is headed in the right direction. The only mistake I could see is maybe selling some covered calls on Palantir, and so I'll be rolling those a little bit, and then also selling TQQQ a little early. So I think that's gone up to the $80 range, but we'll see. I'll be cost averaging in when and if we have a recession in the near term. So
yeah, I know the feeling because on this channel I want to be fully transparent. So I reached a sad milestone this week, and that milestone is that my portfolio would have hit $1 million if I hadn't done covered calls. And because I have done covered calls both on Palantir and Rocket Lab, I'm only at 420,000 or something. So I was really like sort of pissed this week. But I cannot complain. I'm still up 80 something percent in a year. Last year I was up like 120%, and I am able to like roll the positions. So like I will be able to catch up. Rocket Lab, I'm very sure. I mean, Palantir, that one did run away, but I also feel like the valuations are very, very stretched at the moment. Like I feel that we are peak euphoria, and my advice is to be cautious and keep in mind, the risk reward, because when the stock price goes higher, it's like you're pricing in more and more perfect execution. When we were buying Rocket Lab in the threes, it was like we were buying a launch company without the, you know, the space systems and without the space constellations. And as the price goes up, you know, more and more of the things get priced in. So just make sure that you're thinking with that when you're buying it.
Man, this guy, dude, he's out of control over there, living the dream over in Italy and tossing us money like it's nothing. Thank you, Fool's Gold. Thank you, Curtis. You guys are more than generous. Appreciate you both. It's always been in my discussion, right? When people have always asked me, I mean, we've been doing this for 50 odd weeks, and you know, people have asked me even before we were doing Rocket Lab Weekly, like, what's your thought process? And I say, you know, 18 to 24 months. This is what I would say 6 months to a year ago. 18 to 24 months, this thing is going to have some very significant catalysts and milestones that'll help de-risk that. And so it makes it easier for me to look at Rocket Lab as an investment going forward, because the initial thought process that I had behind it was I'd be willing to risk up to 100, 120,000 maybe if I got push come to shove into this company. And now I feel even more comfortable just knowing where it's at with an Archimedes engine that's been tested. It hasn't been test flown yet, and I'm hoping to hear a little bit more about some of the Archimedes testing, hopefully on Tuesday when we have the earnings call. But or is it Monday? Tuesday when we have the earnings call, and on the 12th. And you know, but we've gotten to a place now where we literally just have to combine everything, integrate all the different products that have been individually tested, and do a wet dress rehearsal. And my hope is we see that earlier in the year, 2025, than you know, April or May, because my anticipation is once you do a wet dress, you're going to be having to do some tweaks here and there, and then that'll take a month or so on its own. So fingers crossed that we're still on track. You know, I'm curious to see what ends up happening. I think unless there's some big announcement, the Mars announcement, or some big backlog announcement, I think it'll probably be pretty low of an earnings report. I say that though, knowing that there could be some big announcements in there, but I also anticipate we're going to see a manifest. So with that, I think who knows?
Yeah.
If it pulls back. I thought Palantir was going to pull back, and it's gone to the moon. So
yeah. It's this bull rally has been one of the craziest bull rallies that I've ever witnessed on the stock market in general. But okay, I think we go over the Rocket Lab news, and then I see a lot of people are asking if we're buying. Is the earnings going to justify the price? What do we think about the price? So I think we covered the news first, and then we go into earnings. And hopefully Scotto, he was going to be with us, and something came up. He still might join us. He's really good with the numbers, and I saw his video about his Q3 preview, and I don't understand how he's able to follow, you know, like the different launches and the different programs and how much is spent and recognized. And he's like, he might be an AI, maybe it doesn't exist, anyways. But I'm not able to follow it as good as he is. So. We go to the news. We have had a launch this week. I believe you live streamed it, Matt, which was the first launch this quarter. This is supposed to be by far the best quarter when it comes to launches for Rocket Lab. We are getting a slow start, and it feels like this quarter is going to flap a little bit when it comes to launches. How do you see this quarter playing out?
Well, we already have the next launch. It seems like it's going to be a Synspective launch, at least from what I've seen. So hope is we're able to get that off. But like you still see, there's still a gap of about 2.5 weeks in between both launches. So to me, that's not the pace we're hoping for the fourth quarter, considering we were expecting to get 5 to 8 launches to kind of get us closer to 5 to 7 launches to get us closer to that 15 to 18 sort of launch cadence that we're expecting. So to give everyone some context, that launch that we had last week on Tuesday morning, that was the 12th launch for the year. So now we're still forecasting anywhere between 3, I guess, and 5 more launches to get us to that 15 to 18 sort of launch that we were kind of been knowing. and that's still down comparatively to where we were expecting, right? I think we were expecting to be at 22 for the year. That's at least what they slotted for the manifest. So where do I think we are, giving that context going forward? Now, where do I think we are? I think we'll hit the 15, but it's going to be tough, I think, to hit 18. And still, if you look at it from that perspective, if you're missing by that much, I mean, let's just do some quick math. So 22 minus 15 divided by the 22. So you're missing by about 30% on the downside. Or if you're doing 21 minus 18, it'll probably be closer to 15%. Divided by 22, yeah, it'll be about 14%. So you're still missing your target by 15 to 30%, which, to me isn't awful. To me, if you hit that goal of 15 or 16, it's a better pace than what it was in 2023. But my hope is that we figure out a way going forward to stack some of these customers, so that way if somebody does miss, we have the opportunity to still launch a rocket off into space. So that's just kind of my food for thought.
Yeah. We got a super chat question here from blah blah. How big the space solar panel and reaction wheels Rocket Lab business is going to be? Reaction wheels are massively being produced right now. Do you want to answer this, or should I go ahead first? Or
I know that the solar panels, it's a pretty small market there's small amount of competitors. I mean, it's a large market, but small amount of competitors. And so I know Rocket Lab has done a good job kind of maintaining that. For the reaction wheels, I know that I don't know the quantity, but I know it's gone up massively since they've acquired that business. I'm going to say on the order of they're going to make 2,000 wheels this year or something like that. So I don't know if you know much more. That's the last numbers that I had heard was about 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, what I have learned about the space solar is that Rocket Lab is not competitive when it comes to the LEO constellations. Like, for example, Starlink is just using regular solar panels, not even space grade solar panels, because the Starlink satellites, they deorbit after a few years, and they're still protected by the atmosphere. And when it becomes to further out constellations and spacecrafts that are leaving Earth, their Rocket Lab is very, very competitive. And as far as I understand, they have a lot of capacity to produce both on the solar panels and on the reaction wheels. The reaction wheels is competitive even on the low Earth orbit constellations. And what I understood is that it has the potential to become a very big part of, or a fairly big part of Rocket Lab, but we are suspecting that Amazon is ordering a lot of satellites from Rocket Lab, but it has not been announced. So I would say that it's customer dependent. Like, there is a capacity for the reaction wheels to become a very big business, but it has not been ordered yet by customers. I don't know if that's fair to say, you think?
Sorry, I'm getting lost in the chat here.
No problem.
Yeah,
but I believe I answered the question as good as I could. Next news is Rocket Lab released a new crypto token this week. I don't know if you guys saw.
Forgot about that.
I'm sorry, guys. I have a lot less content than usual. It's because I'm about to have baby number 4 at any time, and we are doing baby preparations. I have some projects at work that need to finish, and I am we're getting baby number 3 used to sleeping in my room and not my wife's room, because she's not going to be able to sleep with the new baby and baby number 3, who are on different schedules. And I've just been a zombie because baby number 3 is not a very good sleeper. And yeah, so that's why you don't see a lot of contents, but from me. But I was at work, went to the toilet, usually check Twitter, really quick, and I saw that Peter Beck launched a new crypto, and you couldn't comment on the post, and I was like, this must be hacked. And And sure enough, they came out a few hours later that the account has been hacked. So is there anyone here in the chat who has bought crypto from Peter Beck? I don't look, the reason why these scams keep coming back is because some people are buying. So I'm curious, like who does this work on? Or have you ever
I
seen
hadn't
anyone?
heard anybody get actually scammed from it, but I did get a lot of messages from people wondering if they should buy it. Is this real? And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. So to the extent, I mean, I feel like because I'm associated with the stock that sometimes somehow this falls on my shoulders to like, don't, buy cryptocurrencies from untrustable sources. And did Vince just exit himself? Vince lost himself. There you go.
I just exited the stream. I don't know how,
Yeah.
but
So yeah, just be cautious. If you're not even in crypto, don't even think about getting into crypto, I guess. I mean, I'm a fan of it, but I only buy Bitcoin and more uh trusting sort of sources. I don't want to say I've been burned, but I've bought projects in the past because I like the artwork and stuff, but never really because I thought I was going to get absolutely loaded. And I still have some NFT projects and stuff, but I think most people, they just see potential for gains for some reason. They don't care. They just FOMO into things. And yeah, I just hope that I haven't heard of anybody getting scammed, but hopefully nobody got tricked. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
yes, yes, yes. And okay, this week we had a slight event happening. I don't know if you guys noticed. There was an election in the U.S. It was like a small thing, barely noticed by the world. And so Trump won, and then the space stocks and many other stocks have gone completely crazy. I was thinking that the market would think that Trump is better for the economy, but I must say I was shocked at how well the market reacted to the news. So I have an article on here by Eric Berger, who is talking about how the space policy is going to change. But I want to hear your viewpoint, Matt. What did you think about Trump winning, and what effect do you think this will have on Rocket Lab?
Well, I'll say I was just surprised. I didn't expect it to have as much of a benefit, but I think with what stocks that we are currently in, which are more defense tech or just artificial intelligence, and then also the space piece here with Rocket Lab, I think we're well benefited from a Trump administration. One, less regulatory environment. Two, Trump is the godfather of the Space Force, right? So my hope is that he excels and gives slightly more funding towards that. And then it seems like they're much leaning into artificial intelligence, robotics. I heard that the Secret Service has ramped up robot dogs at Mar-a-Lago, pre basically Trump moving back into the White House, and then coupling that with just the need for efficiency and artificial intelligence is beneficial for something like Palantir to be able to use their software rather than maybe deploying somebody on the ground, etc. I could see a place where that benefits as well. So either way that you look, and then coupling that with favorable tax rates, right? I think that um, a lot of money was being spent by the government that was just going kind of everywhere, and I'm sure that there's going to be some still part of that, but hopefully it focuses more here on at least American soil rather than going to everywhere, which is generally speaking what we've been seeing over the past 4 years. But my hope is that you remove some of the regulatory environment that is kind of been made a nightmare by previous administrations. And I'm not saying zero regulation, right? I think when people hear deregulate, they think that I'm thinking just remove all regulations. Let's be anarchists, and that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying sometimes you'll have regulations built, and then you'll have another regulation built that kind of sub-regulates off of a previous thing that makes things confusing, and next thing you know, you're kind of double dipping on things, and so you sometimes might be chrome cutting or chroming something that doesn't need to be chrome. It could just be regular old steel, and if you think about the difference in that, it could drive the cost down of something, say 50%. And so my hope is with the ability to focus and efficiencies, as well as different tax cuts as well. I'm curious to see where the tariff thing goes. I haven't really done too much on that, but I'm hoping that that continues to do well. But overall, I think it's going to be business environment positive, and so fingers crossed that that we continue to see continued benefits. And I think we saw this something similar during the first administration, right? 2016 to 2020 was pretty good, except for the pandemic. And I think unfortunately the pandemic is what um, keeps a bad taste in people's mouth for Trump. But I think overall, other than that, he was very fair, and he made sure things got done, and he got a lot of deals done. And I think it's going to be beneficial for the economy.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was a camp who was basically really worried that because of the friendship between Elon Musk and Trump, that all the I also just want to give a shout out to Brett Thomas and Julie Law for becoming a member. You guys are amazing. And yeah, Brett went to both channels and gave both of us $50. You guys are really, really amazing. So there was a camp who was very afraid that because of the friendship between Elon and Trump, when Trump is elected, what's going to happen is like 100% of the contracts are going to go to SpaceX. And I think that was a bad, how do you call it? Like, I think that was like a misconstrued idea. I think what Musk and Trump are going to more target is the SLS rocket that has been, I think it's like 20 billion that has been spent on the SLS rocket, and it's not reusable, and it costs like 10 to 100 times as much as Starship. And I think that NASA can be very much streamlined, and if you cancel some of these insanely costly programs, there will be a lot of money left for Rocket Lab and SpaceX and even other new coming companies. And I think one of the main changes, what I have read on Eric Berger's article, is going to be that Artemis, the end goal of that program is to land humanity on Mars. Somehow Mike Pence came in and he added that, okay, first let's go to the moon, because that's like an easier thing to do and we can practice. Now Mike Pence is long gone from the picture, and Trump wants to, it seems like, create a heritage, and he asked Musk to land on the moon, on Mars during his presidency. So that's up to 2029. So I think that the moon is going to be skipped or scaled down very much, and focus is going to go back to Mars. And I think that there's going to be a lot of bone for Rocket Lab there also to be part of that Mars economy.
Yeah, I think with the reshaping of the landscape of the competitors, I definitely see Rocket Lab playing a bigger role in Artemis, and I think it could even be a larger role, especially if Blue Origin doesn't show up as we're expecting them to, because I know that they have a lot of contracts out for Artemis as well. So curious to see what happens.
Yeah. So and again, I just want to say it because I know a lot of people are asking, like, are you buying at 13, or like, is it still a good thing to buy Rocket Lab? And this channel is not financial advice, but the thing to keep in mind in Rocket Lab is, for example, if they get a Mars sample return mission, which would be it's rumored to be a $2 billion contract, it would triple their backlog, and it would be a whole different company with just that one contract. So I think that, yes, the valuation has run up a lot, but what I have always stressed to you guys is have your own valuation, have a number that you're happy with buying Rocket Lab for, and as long as the stock is below that, don't go into like, I will buy on the next dip, and I will wait for the stock to pull back, because there's a lot of people who wanted to buy a lot of Rocket Lab when the stock went to 8, and they said we will buy on the next pullback into the 6s, and we're at 14, and those people are not happy. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, I mean I've been buying a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, and really just trying to get another 1,000 shares, 2,000 shares, as much as I can really get my fingers on. And I when the price initially ran up north of 10, I was also kind of playing that game like, ooh, it'd be really nice to buy in the 8s and 9s and 10s, and I was just like, you know what? I was like, I could write puts till kingdom come, and at the end of the day, it might not be the most wise thing to do, and I might not ever get put the shares. And here I am, just sitting on a little bit of premium from writing the contract. So I was like, it doesn't really make sense, right? But so what I've now done is, I have some of those contracts still out there. I'm going to roll them out, as time comes, in the $8 or $9 range, but in reality, I'm just continuing to buy stock at this price too, right? So I mean, if push comes to shove, I have allocated capital to buy more as it dips, but I'm spending beer money here and there just to make sure that I'm getting a couple hundred shares every few weeks, and hopefully it turns into a couple thousand shares, and eventually, in the next 20 or so years. I do want to say, I made a gamble. It's not that big of a gamble, but it involves, and I would say this involves a little bit of more of an abstract mind to think about. But I basically thought about what are the options chains that are out on the market right now for Rocket Lab, and I said, okay, well, let me see what's out there. So if you look at the January 2027 $25 puts that are out there, they were paying something like 14 or $15 or something like that. And so it's like, okay, well, technically it's like, if you were to get assigned those shares, anything below 25, it'd be like getting assigned those shares at like $10 or $11, right? And so I took that premium, and then I immediately turned around and I bought, what was it? Either the $5 or $7 leaps for 2027. So basically I took in like $2,800 worth of premium, and I used that $2,800 worth of premium to buy some leaps. And my thought process is worst case scenario, I had to buy some Rocket Lab, 200 or 300 shares of Rocket Lab below $25. And the better case, which is more likely to happen, is we blow through $25 in the next 2 to 3 years, 850 days or so. And I have these leaps that I bought at the $5 or $7 range. And the nice thing about those leaps at the $5 or $7 range is it's almost like a dollar for dollar. So now you're so in the money on those that it's basically like as if you had bought shares. So instead of paying however much it was to buy 300 shares, like $3,900 at $13, I got it at a discount technically at $2,800 to be able to control the same. So it's not, if you think about it in that perspective, it's not super cheap. It's still somewhat expensive because it would have cost me, well, I guess let me do the math. I got them at like a 28-29% discount if you think about it. Just to be able to buy it at the $2,800 instead of the $3,900. But anyway, it was just kind of interesting, and I wanted to give it a go. Worst case scenario, I was like, I lose $5,000 on the whole thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like I have 2 contracts, or maybe I did 3. I don't know. So it's like worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, and it'll just be offset by whatever gains that I make on the stock entirely. But I've fair confidence that it'll end up being fun.
Yeah, we should do. I'm thinking about doing an option segment on the channel, because this selling a very in the money put is a very advanced strategy. I feel it's
the only other time I've done it was with like Palantir back in the day, and unfortunately I had to buy it back for other reasons, but it would have turned out great.
Yeah, but for the people that are not into options, it's basically like the same as owning the stock, except instead of you putting out money, like you get paid to own the stock, and basically you have the same risk and reward up to the strike price. So like if Rocket Lab would go to 24, like you literally get the same upside as if you would have owned the shares. But the downside of this is if Rocket Lab goes to $50, you only make money up to $25. But yeah, it's a very advanced strategy. So I think we should have a different segment when we go into this for people if they're interested. We got this piece of news this week. I believe it was on Monday. Rocket Lab confirms plan to bid for the Pentagon launch contracts with the new medium rocket. I mean, this was not really news, but it's basically what happened is we have the National Security Space Launch Program, Phase 3, Lane 1. That is where the newcomers can bid. And the only requirement that you have to have is to have a credible path to flight by the end of December 2025. This is the one that Rocket Lab missed for 2024 with Neutron. Unfortunately, I'm very sure they're going to make it for 2025. And also, this is one of those things that if they do get this contract and they get $500 million in launch contracts, again, where does the stock go? The answer is I don't know, but for sure not down. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I mean, my hope is that in order to get in the running, I hope they didn't try to get a discount, right? And that's kind of been the big thing. And
they don't even have competition here because, like, think about it. The lane 1, it's first the newcomers that have to bid, right? And who can bid here? It's like Firefly, Astra. I don't even think they're alive anymore, or I don't know what's going on with them. And who else who has a credible flight path? Because Relativity, their first test flight is 2026.
Yeah, Relativity, I don't even know if they're going to get off. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, my fear of anything is it goes against what Peter wants, which is lower than a $55 million sales price. But it seems like, if anything, I don't think Peter would do that. I think there's still so much momentum. I don't think he's desperate. And so he'll probably get that $55 million sales price, and it'll be great, because then that just means that we are in the running for our first official commercial contract, which is great, right? Because that gives you a little bit of money up front for working capital purposes. And if that's the case, and we get further into those milestones, you can offset some of that operating expenditure cost, which fingers crossed is kind of coming down to a slow grind at this point, but it seems like it's still pretty elevated this quarter and probably next. So interesting. I hadn't seen this one. I have to dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. So we're almost done with the Rocket news, and we're almost ready to go into earnings. I want to give a shout out to Dave G, who posted this catalyst table for Rocket Lab. And I think that this is very accurate. It's basically he calls out the events that can happen, like how high is the probability, and how much it would affect the stock, and what is the timeline when it can happen. I think this table is very accurate as for catalyst for the stock. So yeah, you guys can give him a follow on Twitter.
Hot Dave, man, knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Somebody wrote he's not here on the live stream because he's cuddling his wife because she sold Rocket Lab at $6
I forgot about that.
It's so funny that she was like so good at timing the stock between $4 to $6, and then everybody was telling like she was like freakishly good. And then we were on this Rocket Lab Weekly, and we were saying this is going to work until it doesn't, and then and then it came to the point when it didn't work. And yeah, so now David has to cuddle her, and yeah. And Last space industry news is SpaceX tonight has now landed the Falcon Family 9 booster family 362 times, nearly 9 years since the first orbital Falcon landing. No other company or country has done this even a single time. Hopefully, this changes within the next 12 months. I think that this sentence is crazy. So I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to SpaceX. He means nobody propulsively landed an orbital rocket. Because I'm
Orbital
sure
is key.
yeah, exactly. Because I'm sure Jeff Bezos will be like, yeah, we have been propulsively landing the New Shepard, or Sir Peter Beck could be like, we've been catching electrons from helicopters and picking them out from the ocean, but they have not reflown it, and it wasn't propulsively landing. So
I've seen some people make some progress in Asia. I know Chinese companies have. I don't know if Indian companies have made progress on landing, but none of them have been orbital, right? Like that's the key piece there. Like none of them have been to space, came back and landed. They've all been like what the Falcon 9 did initially, right? Which is like a 300, 400 foot hover and then come back down and land. So none of them have been to space and then landing back on a pad yet.
Yeah, I saw that China is doing like a Starship copy now also.
Are they? Wow,
yeah, I saw like an article on it, but yeah, I don't have it here. Cool. So next up is the earnings that is coming in what is it, 4 days. So what is your view on earnings? Are we mooning? Are we crashing? Is the price justified? Jesus Christ, guys.
Hot Curtis, man.
Yeah, Hot Curtis.
Yeah, we all have to buy the Sweet Tells. I should put like a little sponsorship thing up in my corner. We should get the brand thing. That actually be pretty funny. Where do I think, man? I mean, I'm gonna eat my words just like I did with Palantir, and I admit it. I had to eat not literally my hat like Peter Beck, but I definitely had to be humble and tell people that I predicted wrong on what happened with Palantir. I was 100% right when it came to the earnings revenue year over year growth being at 30%. And I was expecting that even at the elevated price of $42, $43 going into earnings, I was expecting we would need at least 35% year over year to justify that. And yet here we are on Palantir boosting up above 55, almost $58 at this point. So with Rocket Lab, it's not like a massive comparison quarter over quarter beat. In fact, actually quarter over quarter, it might go down slightly just depending on how many launches. I forget how many launches we actually did get off in 3Q, but I think we got the 3 launches that we needed off in 3Q. So the 21 million is probably secure. But what I don't know, and generally speaking, the space systems is pretty predictable. So I wouldn't really expect us to show up at like $120 million of revenue or anything like that. I would expect us to be within that 100 to 105 million. So that being said, I think that it's actually slightly less than what we saw in the second quarter. So people might be upset with that. I'm trying to remember. I didn't do my numbers whether how much of an increase it was. So in the background, let me pull up
50 something. Like so like last quarter we were 70+% up. And if this quarter you take the midpoint of the projections, it will be like 51 to 2% up, something like this, compared to last year.
Q3 revenue last year was 68 million. Yeah. So let's just take 100 minus 68 divided by 68. That's 47%. 105 minus the 68 divided by 68. That's 55. So 50 to 55 is where it's kind of trending. Sorry, 47 to 55 is where it's trending, depending on you show up at 100 or 105.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Q3 earnings is in the bag. Where I am worried is actually the guidance for Q4, because it was supposed to be a blowout quarter. And so we might get a chance for a dip in Rocket Lab, depending on these earnings, but we might not, because here's the things that I think will bode really well on earnings. If they can show Neutron updates, show how the rocket is getting completed. I don't know if you guys remember that the original target was to have Neutron on the pad by year end. And you remember we were debating if they mean like on the pad or launching and on the pad, and we couldn't put it anywhere. And if you look at their tweets, and because they have been tweeting pictures about different parts of Neutron that is done, and then they have this diagram that shows which part of Neutron is ready, and it's a pretty significant part of Neutron that they have shown pictures of now, like the stage 1 tank, the fairings, the stage 2 tank, I believe they have shown, the body of the rocket. There has been multiple Archimedes engines. So what if they come out with the earnings and say that we're going to have a Neutron half assembled on the pad by year end? I think that would bode insanely well for the stock. And the Q4 guidance, Scotto did a video, and I wish he could come and explain this. So the launch is going to suck. We hopefully, like, it might be that we only get 3 launches. Maybe we get up to 5 launches, but I don't know. It's not. I'm really worried about like going into Christmas time, and I don't know how it works with the launches. Maybe the rockets don't care that it's Christmas and they and they still launch, but the launch part is going to suck. And Scotto did a mathematical calculation, and he was saying that the SDA contract, like we will be able to the MDA, the one that is the going to Apple, that program is like fully finished now. And then he was able to track like how much of that revenue has not been recognized. And he's like, if they recognize, he was saying if they recognize all that revenue in Q4, which they might, it's like it will be like 100% year over year increase. So it's going to be like an insanely blowout quarter, even if the launches are not there. But then I don't know, like Scotto is really good on the numbers, but I have such a hard time to follow, when you go down to the projects. And so I hope he's right. But so it might be that the Q4 guidance is going to be insanely good, and then we just continue mooning.
Yeah, I don't have the granularity that I need. I think the thing that I'm most concerned about going into earnings is, has the backlog increased? So, I mean, from Q1 to Q2, we saw a 5% quarter over quarter increase in the backlog. It was like from 1.05 billion to 1.09 something billion. It was about $50 million worth of increase. And my fear is that they have about just over 40% of the backlog being realized. Because if you think about it, we're at about $100 million a quarter run rate at this point, and expected to increase to over 150 million run rate on a quarterly basis going into next year, right? So at some point we'll hit that next gear of going up, whether that's space systems delivery, increased rocket launch cadence, or both. So to me, I'm trying to understand, at what point do we see that hockey stick showing up in the backlog? I mean, there's people asking about the Mars return sample thing, and how much of a backlog increase will that be? Will there be additional SDA contracts? Will there be additional MDA contracts, like you just saw with Global Star kind of saying, hey, we need more, Apple providing the opportunity for more folks to build? Will the MDA even be involved? Will Rocket Lab be more of the contributor to the buses and the other components of the satellite, or is MDA still going to have their fingers in it? I don't know. So I'm just kind of more concerned about that piece, and then coupling that with what manifest are we going to see for 2025? Is it still going to be at 22, or are we actually going to try to increase it? And my fear is if they give us, and this is where I kind of get my head in a pretzel, it's like if they give us 22 launches, that could either mean one of two things. They either underperform like they did in 2023 and we only get 15 to 18 launches, or they actually say 22 and they mean it. And that means that like 22 means 22 and they get there. But to me, if they came out with something that was more like 30, I would probably feel more confident knowing that they only missed by 15 to 30% only, but I mean, they only missed 15 to 30% as a forecast right now for 2024. And who knows? I mean, might get closer to that 15% miss rather than the 30% miss. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening there. But if you take that into account, then if you miss by 30% and you forecast for 30 launches in 2025, you're still getting 21 launches in the year, right? And you're still on pace for the first commercial rocket to hit 100 launches faster than the Falcon 9. So in that respect, I think you're showing positive inertia going into 2025 and hopefully setting up a good foundation for profitability for both space systems as well as the launch system business, and getting Neutron hopefully up to a place where they at least get the first one off, and maybe they wet test the second one before the end of the year, and hopefully in early 2026 they get the second one off, and hopefully that's a commercial flight. Anyway, sorry, enough rambling from me.
Yeah, no, but it's definitely a good point. So what we are watching is backlog, guidance, and launch guidance. And you're right. I was also thinking that, like, yeah, exactly. Like if they guide for 22, it might be that the market automatically discounts the 30%. And then it's better that they guide for 30, or it can also be that they provide no guidance and say that it's better for us to like guide, like every quarter on the rocket launches, and it's going to increase year over year or something like this. I mean, we're gonna see what they do, but yeah, there is a possibility of a dip after Q4 earnings. There is a possibility of I mean, I think if they report as Cotto says, and they gave good guidance, the stock can go higher. So now let's go to the question that I've seen so much from the audience. Would you be adding at this price, or are you adding at this price? And do you think where do you think fair value is for the stock?
I mean, fair value is really up to the interpreter, right? I mean, some people might say, I only want to hold for the next 6 months and I need money in 6 months. And so fair value might be at $10, but for me, I think that any price here is fair with what I've seen. My thought process for Rocket Lab has been, I anticipate us getting to a very fair value of $15 after the Neutron launch. Like, I think that would be a floor price. So my thought process is if you honestly think that that's the case, and that's pre-profitability, that's pre-constellation, that's pre-announcements of getting any commercial contracts, right? So that's literally a $7.5 billion market cap valuation on the company. And now you're talking about unlocking a whole plethora of different revenue streams that currently are not on the books for Rocket Lab, right? So that unlocks human space flight for Rocket Lab, that unlocks constellation ability for Rocket Lab. That basically puts them in a league of much smaller competitors, because right now it's really just SpaceX, Blue Origin, ULA, Ariane 6, maybe if you're talking about the European Space Agency, and maybe Relativity if they get there. And then you have maybe some of your Eastern competitors in China and India that may or may not be in the same sort of boat. But to me, I think if you start taking away market share from the Falcon 9, I think that there's a lot that can happen there in terms of. Anyway, so long story short, I don't want to go down that tangent, but long story short, I think any price here between now and $10 billion market cap, I think is good. And I think a $10 billion market cap would be what? I'm not good with math. $20. So would I be running to the door to buy at $20? No, but am I slow buying, every couple of weeks? And in fact, I think I might somebody suggested, we were talking about another stock, and they're like, dude, they're like, don't run to buy it, but just put in $100 a week or $100 a month or something. And in fact, I probably will do the same, just so I'm not like, I just want to make sure that I'm getting it done. I don't want to have to look at my bank account. Do I have enough money? So if I just like throw it in there, and it just set it, forget it, like you get a couple $100 worth in there, that cup turns into a couple thousand, and that couple thousand turn into five figures. And then hopefully that runs off to the races and you're good. So I probably will set that up again as well, just to make sure that I'm averaging, because sometimes we get lost in the sauce. Like, for example, initially before I started adding at 10, 11, $12, and even like last week I added at 13. I was just like, man, but my cost basis is $5 something. And, some of my shares in my one account are below $5. Some shares are below $6. So you add it together, it's like mid fives. I'm like, ooh, I don't really want to mess up that cost basis. But I'm like, dude, like that cost basis is a dream, like how you'll never get back there. And to me, if you look at it, like that's blinding you to look at where you are today, where the stock is today, and where you think it's going to go in the next 5 to 10 years. And so where I'm at is, I think at the base case for me, in 10 years time, I think this is going to be a $25 billion stock. So a 3.5x from where we are today. So why wouldn't I buy stock now? And to be very frank, depending on what happens with Constellation, if there's another acquisition, if the cadence gets better from a frequency launch perspective for Rocket Lab, this could be a $50 billion stock in the matter of 10 years, right? And so Elon's it's insane. If you look at SpaceX, before they launched the Falcon 9, they were barely worth $10 billion. Once they launched Falcon 9, it went from 10 to 20 to 30, all within the matter of a couple of years. So this thing expanded, and now, 10 years later, it's worth $200 billion. So to me, the numbers, once you start getting the rocket that works and the rocket that actually adds a shit ton of value, that's where the huge market cap gains are going to show up. And we haven't even gotten to that place yet.
Yeah. And all I can always say to the people who are wondering about their cost basis is, I don't remember my Palantir cost basis for the life of me. I know it's in the $8, but what I do remember is I had the chance to buy more shares and I didn't. And that annoys me way more than if my cost basis would be 8 or 10 or 11 or whatever, so just keep that in mind. I, for myself, just to be completely transparent, I have a gigantic Rocket Lab position that I got assigned on put options that I was selling. And so I have even more than I planned to have. It ended up working out really well for me until I did the cover calls on them. So I'm not looking to add. But I do think that, I agree with exactly what you said. Like, I wouldn't be running through the door to buy the stock, but I would also not be not buying it. If I had a target of like, I want to reach an X amount of shares and you don't have that target, I would be nibbling at the stock.
Still. What am I looking at here? Like, if I'm going to be adding to my top 5 positions, right? Let's just go down the list. It's, Palantir, Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab's number 1 actually in that list. So Rocket Lab, Palantir, Amazon, Google, and SoFi. It's like, well, SoFi I think is going to be a slow grind, right? I don't think that's going to just like shoot up to $50 a share or anything like that. Amazon, I could see that doubling or tripling within the next 5 to 10 years, but I don't think it's going to be like a quick thing, like I think it's going to be a slow grind. So if I just add, and I should probably do the same, add a couple $100 a month to that as well. And same thing with Google, but there's a few other stocks that I'm adding to right now, Rocket Lab being one, and a secret stock that we said we wouldn't say. Those are the 2 that I'm really adding to right now. I added to SoFi a couple months back, but right now, those are the 2 ones that I'm literally looking at dead in the eye, and I'm like, where is this thing actually going to go? Because one is it's kind of a long Trump play, and the other one is Rocket Lab. So I'm sitting here like, well, what am I going to do? I don't think it's going to go. Like, to me, I'm like, well, $14 buying shares at $14 in 5 to 10 years is going to look silly, and I wish I had bought more. And what's the worst that happens? The stock goes down, and I still have other money to buy more, like Rocket Lab at $8 or $9 if it actually pulls back. Like, I feel like I can only win at that situation. The only place where I lose is if for some reason Rocket Lab doesn't deliver. Well, look at this. We're about to enter 2025. They've had 19 years of pretty consistent delivery to get them where they are today, and they haven't gone bankrupt yet. So if you're talking about other players that are literally on the verge of bankruptcy, Astra pretty much has already gone bankrupt. Relativity is looking for a sale. Boeing's looking to get out of the space business. So you're only seeing more consolidation. And yet Rocket Lab's got $500 million on the balance sheet and is looking at expanding, and it's the closest one. So
and
anyway.
And a really weird counterintuitive thing that the higher the stock price goes for Rocket Lab, the safer the company gets in a way, because it's easier for them to raise capital that they need. So if the stock price would go to 10 billion, which is the $20 stock price, and they would do a 10% dilution, they would get 1 billion in the bank from the dilution. If they would reach 20 billion in valuation, it would be a 5% dilution to get 1 billion in the bank. And they don't need 1 billion in the bank unless they, I don't know, want to develop an even bigger rocket, which they don't. But in a really weird way, the higher the stock price goes, the safer the company becomes.
Yeah, the secret stock, everybody, is actually RKT, Rocket Mortgage. It's the best stock in the market, better than Rocket Lab. So if you're wondering what the secret stock is, you heard it here first.
Yeah. So I just want to address this super chat. Can we talk about small Mars sample return? We're gonna win. So my thoughts on the Mars sample return. If we get that contract, it completely changes the company, I feel. Because it will be, I mean, it will triple the backlog, you know. Then Rocket Lab would be like a launch, a space systems, and a Mars economy company or something. And I think we have good, in a way, good chances to get it, because as Peter Beck said in his interviews, like Rocket Lab has done, you know, they have launched small rockets, they have landed small rockets, they have operated, you know, things in orbit. They have, you know, landed things from orbit. So there's a chance that we win this, but there is 8 other companies that are bidding for this. SpaceX is one of them. So if you look at it mathematically, it's like what is 100% divided by 8, like 12.5% chance mathematically that we get it. I hope that answers your question. I wouldn't buy the stock because of it, but it's definitely keep it in the back of your mind that we might get this and causes the stock to moon.
No, do not buy. Rocket Lab or Rocket Mortgage may be a good company. I don't have any DD on it though. It's a joke. Sorry.
Yes. So don't buy crypto from Sir Peter Beck. And don't buy Rocket Mortgage because Matt is telling you to buy it. It's his account.
Yeah, you got gotten. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Dave. I'm with you. I don't know how they're going to do it, and that's the thing. If anybody were to do it, to me, the only 2 players that could right now are Rocket Lab and SpaceX. So I'm kind of curious. Buy Rocket Lab though.
Totally. Cool. I mean, I think that was the episode for this week. I don't know if you feel like you want to add anything or.
Just consistent, you know, at the end of the day, I just hope that everybody's adding money to their portfolio. It doesn't always have to be directly into stocks, but make sure one of the simplest things that you can do, you know, I keep hearing people, you know, ask me, you know, I'm 33, I do okay. You know, what's the biggest thing that's done well for me? It's literally that like I said earlier, what I was talking about, putting a couple $100 away and buying Rocket Lab and just like setting it and forgetting it. I'm not necessarily saying go ahead and do that with every company, but what I am saying is at least be sure that you're putting away enough that you have money in a sock drawer, or at least in a brokerage account. Because the thing that I see most people do is they'll put in $1,000, they'll forget about investing for 2 years, and they'll be like, "Oh, I only have $1,000. This thing sucks, right?" And investing is for chumps. Well, it's like anything else, right? You need to reinvest back into your business. And what are you going to do? Are you going to feed your business, or are you going to starve your business? And I think a lot of times people end up just assuming they could put in $1,000 and 1,000 exit to be a millionaire, and that's just not how it works. And so, even if you're putting it into a money market account, be sure to do that as well. If you have money in a savings account, make sure that that savings account is getting decent. I know that interest rates are going to get cut, but I mean, we do this for our Airbnbs. Like we have a bunch of checking account. We get a lot of money into our checking account, and we make sure to put that in a savings account just as working capital while we wait till we need it, because that $80 a month off of 20 grand is actually going to be extremely helpful. If you think about doing that for 12 to 18 months a year, or 12 to 18 months, you end up getting a couple $1,000 off of that, or even just $1,000. The next thing you know, you're getting a mortgage payment for 30% off or 40% off just because you kept it in a different account and didn't actually have to do anything. So, I mean, that's literally what Airbnb's business model is. Yes, they charge fees associated with, I'm talking about the corporate level, not Matt Money level. I'm talking about the corporate level. They take in fees, they sit on it, they get interest income off of it, and then they release it to the owners once they check in. And so in that respect, I mean, that's where the majority of their income comes from. And yes, of course, they still make money off of the host fees and things of the like that they charge. But yeah, there's a large amount of money that they've made over the past 2 to 3 years just associated with interest income. So be sure you're taking advantage of that, because there could be an opportunity where Rocket Lab dips into $7 or $8 again. I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, you best believe you better have some money set aside to be able to pick up those shares. There's nothing worse than when an opportunity arises and you don't have the money because you've spent too much of it. It happens to me all the time because I'm always looking at the markets. I'm always investing, but even still I run out of money. And it sucks because you can have literally an opportunity of a lifetime. And sometimes another thing I would just like to say, don't get greedy. A prime example of this is, we know how many times Tesla's done a stock split, but I tell this all the time. So I got greedy. Tesla during the pandemic dropped down to like $350 a share. This is pre-split, so it would be like a $1,500 or $2,000 equivalent today. But and this was pre-split, right? So I almost bought it so basically I had a buy order for $350 a share. This is like a pre-split 10 for 1, and it got down to $350.10. And I think it would have been like 20 or 30 grand or something like that. Well, that would have been 10 or 20x at this point. And so just because I was greedy and I said, stupidly, what I said was, I was like, well, that just means that God didn't want me to have those shares, and it was probably for a reason, and Tesla's probably going to go bankrupt or something. And that was my initial thought process. Well, here I am, opportunity cost gone, when I literally was off by 10 cents for that buy order. Sometimes, just buy the goddamn stock, right? $350 and 10 cents versus $350 now. And this is why I tell people this. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're buying it at $550 or $565, just buy the goddamn stock, because here I would have been, if I just wanted to spend that extra 10 cents per share, I'd have several $100,000 next to my name more than I do today. So sometimes you just have to realize, like, what's the true forward potential? And are you being a penny wise, but a dollar foolish? And I say that a lot because it's true. I very much often find myself being very penny wise, but a dollar foolish. So just think about that. Yes. Don't let the penny stop the dollar. I like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the audience. Thank you for the new member, the super chats. You guys are amazing. I guess we're going to be live streaming earnings. If I don't have a baby on the way, then you do it alone, I guess.
When's number 5 coming, man?
Yeah. What my wife, I think, wants a number 5. It's just, never ask a pregnant woman about the next kid. I want to have better finances for number 5. So we see. I need to get rid of my covered calls, and then
maybe we have a pullback. And the nice thing is, though, Vince, is when you do those covered calls, is if you are super in the money on them, when the stock goes down, your account value stays the same, which is kind of cool.
There was like a huge red day a few weeks or days ago. I don't know. There was like a quite heavy. I think Rocket Lab was down like 8% on a day, and also Palantir like, I don't know, something big. And my account was down like $1,000 or something. And whatever. But I liked my cover calls. But then the next day when everything was green, I'm like, Anyways, I will catch up to them. Cool. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Happy earnings. See you guys next.
See you in 3 days.
Few days. Yeah, exactly. Ciao, ciao. Yeah.